Every so often I get someone asking a question about what cameras I use to shoot my episodes, and recently we've had a number of episodes that look a bit better because I'm improving after making 5,000 episodes, and so I get more and more questions, but still not very many, as to what equipment I use, because some people are interested in doing some of this stuff themselves. I do have other channels where I talk about cameras and about vlogging, but I decided that because I want to be able to reference for you guys what I'm using, and some of you may find it interesting, we're going to do a special episode today where we just run through and show some of the cameras and what it looks like when I'm filming with them, for a little bit kind of a behind the scenes sort of thing of how we make the show here. So we're not going to put this into the alert schedule. So if you're seeing this, you did not get told, hopefully if I do it right, that this is your regular video for the day. This is just an extra video that I'm throwing in there. But I think this is going to be fun. It's something different for me, so I'm going to enjoy doing this. So let's take a look at our first camera. Most of my work is done, and I'm filming this just to get started on. I'm filming this on the GoPro 12. I've got a filter on there, a polarizing filter, because we're out here in bright sun, and it makes it a little bit better with get a little bit deeper colors with the sky. So each of the cameras gives just a tiny bit different look. Some are a little bit more dramatic, and I have to shoot this all in SDR because I'm using a mix of cameras for anyone who cares. So a few of the cameras that are capable of HLG output, you won't see that benefit in this particular video, but you will see how they compare in overall image quality. So with that, let's get straight to our first camera, the GoPro 13. So my GoPros are my workhorse cameras. I'm on one now. I've got one in my hand. I have two more in the house, and I had one stolen when I first came and started filming in Nicaragua. I was stolen out of a hotel room, not a big deal. But so I have a 9, an 11, a 12, and a 13. The 11 is starting to have some problems. The 9 is definitely long in the tooth. The 12 is working great, and the 13 is fantastic. I pretty much get one every year because I run them so hard, using them every day out in the heat. They really take a lot of abuse, so that they wear out, not a problem. If you're just getting into vlogging and you're looking for something simple, the GoPros are fantastic. And this is not just my camera, but my gear that I use with it. So I have a new Ulanzi stick that is attached to this. The actual GoPro is pretty small here, you can kind of see, but I use the Ulanzi stick. It's amazing. It extends to like 6 feet if I need it. It's really, the one I'm on is actually on a tripod. I have two of these Ulanzi sticks. So the tripod that this pulls out and it turns into, so I have two of these. They're so good that I got a pack up, and I keep the 12 and the 13 on it, and then the 11 I use for like car mount and stuff, and the 9 is mostly retired. It's an emergency backup camera. I can only use so many. Sometimes I do multiple shots, so that can work. I then have the media kit. You don't have to use this. The actual, especially on the 13, the built-in microphone, pretty darn good, but the boom microphone with the dead cat on the media kit really does a lot for picking up my voice. That's what you're listening to now. I have two of the media kits, and the microphone's really good. The whole system works great, and with this big dead cat, it really helps cut out the wind, and I'm outdoors a lot, so it really does matter. Now the 13 is one that you see me on quite a bit, and when I'm doing this, the way that it is now, I have the lens set to just normal. It's just holding everything in a what you're used to. But when we're moving around, I'm going to turn this on. When we're moving around with any of the GoPros, one of the things that's really a big deal with them is amazing image stabilization. So when I'm walking down the street, this is a camera that I can just walk with and do things, and it stays amazingly stable. And I'm going to use this to actually show how I'm filming here. And this gives you an idea of what the image is going to look like coming off a GoPro. Of course, it should look nearly identical. Now, this one has the circular polarizer, and this one does not, but they do have the same basic sensor and processing and all that. So they should be really, really close in general. But for walking around, there's slightly different angles. For walking around, I love this camera because I still have to hold it steady, but the amount that I have to hold it steady is very little, and you get really good image quality. So this particular one is one that I get asked about pretty often when people say, boy, this looks fantastic, you're outside doing stuff, what makes it look so good? This one, not that expensive, and I'm really happy with the ecosystem. I've been using GoPro since about 2014, 2015. Highly recommend it, and I'm not changing from that in any way. So this is my workhorse, but we've got a lot of other cameras to show you. I stepped inside for just a second to grab my food that came out, and for the first time ever in all the time I've been filming, in 4 years, the wind blew the camera over while I was here. It hit the ground, and the circular polarizer that I was talking about seconds ago just shattered. I'm actually still on it. I can't believe it's holding on, and I think it looks okay. We're actually going to examine this footage and see how bad it is, but I've got some tacos to eat in the meantime, and I need to go order more polarizing filters. That is really awful. So that is how we started the day. All right, let's get on to the next camera. The circular polarizer is definitely shattered. We can't use that anymore. So next up on our cameras that would get used all the time is my iPhone 16. Now I use this quite a bit just when I'm out and doing normal filming. So I'll get some, oh, I got the dogs running around right now. Now one of the nice things is because I have the Pro, and I got this specifically for the channel, is I do have a wide angle option, which gives me a pretty good view. It has a standard view that is pretty functional, is what I use most of the time. So what most people on an iPhone are going to use. It has a couple different settings, so we can zoom in because it does have different lenses, and because of the high resolution, it can do some digital zoom and still remain at 4K. And this is the Pro. So without moving, I have a really telephoto lens, which allows me to get a lot of shots that I was not able to do previously. So I like this a lot. It's a very flexible device and records in very high quality. Now, I don't do most of my filming with it. I am not an iPhone shooter. I don't find it to be a great tool for me for the way that I do workflows and such, but it's really handy to have it for a lot of like quick things. And when I do a lot of the shorts, I'll just hold it up and do something quickly so I can get some messages out to you guys. So it's an important one to have. And if you're wondering how to make a really good vlog, certainly just a GoPro or an iPhone is completely adequate. You don't have to have a lot of specialty gear. If you are going to use, you know, something like an iPhone, consider upgrading your microphones, go to the wireless units. Rode has great stuff. I'm on the GoPro for today's show and most of our shows, but I do use Rode wireless and DJI wireless equipment. And when I'm in the studio, I'm using a Rode pod mic. So I do a lot to make sure I'm getting good audio, and I do audio processing in Final Cut Pro. So just things to think about. Next up is the Insta360 Go 3. Check this thing out. It is so cute. Now, it kind of looks like a GoPro, but unlike a GoPro, it has a flip-up screen, but it doesn't have the media kit or anything. It has built-in storage. This is a very inexpensive little device. This is the Go 3. The Go 3S is now available. But one of the coolest things is you can use this like a standard action cam, hold it around. It's got this nice locked-in lens, but I can release the lens and pull it out. And then I have this little tiny thing, and this is all I need to go out and record. I don't need this at all. It's handy because it's got the screen and controls, and I can do the settings, but I can either connect this to my phone or use this remotely. Like, I can do everything with these two things separately, but even if this is the only thing with me, it's great, and I can go up and stick it on it because it's magnetic. I can just stick it to a fridge, stick it to a metal pole like I have out here right now, and we're actually going to show you a little bit. I'm going to stick this in my pocket so we can go ahead and work with this. It is a really cool device. It's fun to use. It does not have the highest quality. It's not going to match the GoPro or anything like that, but it's just a neat extra part of my arsenal. So it's one of the devices that I use the least, but it is one of the ones that gives me some of the best flexibility. And so that's valuable. All right, I think the sun has changed a little bit, but here we go. So the Go 3, I'm going to stick onto the pole over here so you can see it. So I got to turn it on. My battery died when I was first doing this, and I had to come back and do it again. But this is such a versatile camera. I really enjoy using this. I think that it's very cool. And if you know what you're doing, this is a camera that is well worth using in a lot of circumstances, but it takes a little bit more work. So we're going to stick this in my pocket if I can. I got to find a pocket it'll go into. It's hard to do this while recording. And I'm actually going to turn this camera around and show. Hopefully you can see that. It just stuck to the pole right there. We're going to come back. Now, all these things take a little bit of work. Now, like I said, I could manage this with my phone, but I can also manage it using this little unit. If I gotta hold it the right way. So notice this is where it goes. You should be able to see me from there, and you can see that I'm able to monitor it and control it from here. So I can see exactly what's going on and tell that I'm getting great video while doing this. Now, I like the image off of this quite well. It's a good image. I like it quite well. I like it a lot. It does a good job, but it's really, really wide, which is useful because often you're doing things where you can't really monitor the screen with it. And so it's great for when I'm going to be filming really discreet. It's great when I'm need to fit into a small space. It's neat when I need to just be able to stick it somewhere and grab things without having a lot of interaction with it. So I don't use this one. This is probably the camera I use the least of all my major cameras, but it's really versatile. And so I actually really appreciate it, even though, it's just one of those tools to have in a tool set. And you can, if you wanted to use this as a full-time vlogging unit, of course, you get the 3S, the new one. This one only does 2.7K, which is still fantastic. The 3S is like the same unit, but they figured out how to get 4K out of it. And so that one, if you were going to be vlogging, I would totally recommend the current model. Definitely get it in white because one, it's really cute, and two, doesn't overheat as quickly. So that's really nice. But it's a really useful tool, and I know a lot of people have seen it and are like, this is the one I want. Like, I think more than any camera I own, it's one that when people just play with it for a minute, they're like, wait, it's really inexpensive, it's so easy to use, and it's so versatile. I don't do a lot of work, so it's the one that kind of makes sense. And I agree, if I wasn't like a full-time vlogger and just wanted to be able to grab a few different action things now and then, it's super cool. And if you know Mr. Kidders, the cat video show on Instagram, that is completely filmed with these cameras being worn by cats filming each other. Now, each of the cameras I'm showing you has different capabilities, and when I mix them together, I'm limited to some degree as to what they're going to give you. So far, with the GoPro 13 or the iPhone, they'll provide HLG output, which if I use pure HLG cameras in a given episode, we get a brighter, more vibrant image because it's able to store more data. But when I mix them together, we have to go down to the lowest common denominator. Likewise with this next camera, this is a 360 camera. So what we're going to show you here is regular footage created from it. Because it's a 360 camera, which is super interesting and very versatile, we only can either show in 360, so we need special episodes that actually work that way, or we can convert it to this type of image, which is what we'll do for today's episode, so you can see how we can use it as part of our regular filming. And you can use it as a regular camera and film it much the same way, but what's really interesting is if you go watch our channel, Nicaragua 360, go subscribe, watch those episodes. Those are all filmed with a camera like this one normally, and are full 360. So you can do cool things like move around on the screen, put them in a VR headset and look around. It's really interesting what you're able to do with it. But because of the capabilities that it has, similar to that, when you're filming in 360, we're able to use this for some really versatile things. So one of the other things I have here is a 10-foot pole. And so sometimes people ask me, Scott, how do you get these really amazing shots that look like you have a drone? How could you be doing that? It is actually just a camera like this with a really wide lens on a really long pole. Now I have to be really careful with it because it is very easy. I'm not even going to extend it all the way. It is very easy to have this camera bounce into things. So I have to be careful. But we're going to take it for just a second and we're going to put it up really high so you guys can see a little bit of how we can possibly use it. Sorry that the microphone is going to be a little bit tough. And this will show, hopefully you can see me, this will show a completely different view, and it's really versatile. We're going to bring it back. Now, working with a camera like this for a lot of footage takes a lot more work, a lot more processing, but we're able to get some really interesting things with it. So especially if we're doing travel, we're going out and showing a remote beach somewhere, or we're in the car, we're able to use this to get some cool stuff. And in a recent episode, you could see me filming with it. So I like this camera a lot. This is a very expensive one and very delicate. So this takes a lot of work to be able to use properly and not get damaged. But if you're looking for something really perfect for getting amazing B-roll, something that's really flexible, something that you can use as a supplemental camera whenever you need and can replace something like a GoPro in a pinch, these are fantastic, but way more work and not as durable. Okay, that's the end of my action cam lineup, and now we're getting into my point and shoots or my portable vlogging cams. And my first one is the Sony ZV-1. Some of you know about 2 years ago, we did a fundraiser kind of thing on the show and raised money to get this one, the ZV-1, the first one that I had. And I really like this camera a lot. It's a really cool camera. It's got a flip out screen. It's meant for content creators, much like me, to be able to do a lot of versatile stuff. And so I like it a lot. It really is a really good camera. It has a few quirky things that make it a little bit difficult to use, and so it's not my favorite, but it has amazing image quality. It does some really cool things, and I think that it's one of my best B-roll cams, meaning it's perfect for a secondary shooter to be able to get like behind the scenes footage or that kind of stuff. Like you're getting extra things that are like if we're filming an event, like if I'm filming myself and I'm talking, I'm doing the vlog, my normal cameras work better. But if we're catching, like filming a parade, or we need to be on site somewhere and just grab scenes, places, along with the iPhone, the ZV-1 works really, really well. You can see the image quality is great. It gives a completely different look compared to the GoPro. And here, I'll put it right next to the GoPro. So these are basically, I just bumped it, basically next to each other, and look so different. And this is as wide as you can go on the Sony, but with this one, because it does have actual optical zoom, it's super slow. So we're going to do this, and it's also ridiculously close. So it's not at all meant to be handheld, but I can get really close if I need to. Okay, that's enough of that one. Now, I replaced this in my main arsenal with the Sony ZV-1F just a few months ago, and I think you're going to like that one a little bit more. Okay, so this one I got maybe 6 months ago, and this is the Sony ZV-1F. You'll notice it looks like basically the same camera, but the lens looks different. It's the only way you can really tell them apart reasonably at a casual glance. They have the same fold-out screen and everything. Same camera body, same general look, same controls. If you're holding it, there's just the tiniest bit to tell them apart, but basically it's the same camera. The F stands for fixed, and this is a fixed, wider lens than the Sony ZV-1 offers. So this one is a bit more tuned towards vloggers who are going to film themselves and need to be able to throw something in their pocket really easy. It's actually part of the second generation family from Sony, so it's got some of the updates that the ZV-1 Mark II has, but I like the fixed lens and simpler operation and lighter body of this, and so I actually prefer this to the 1 and Mark II, the ZV-1 and ZV-1 Mark II, because it's just more attuned to how I use this kind of camera. So, and it's also like half the price. So I like this one a lot. I'm really happy with it, and it's pretty new, so I'm starting to use it now and then, but it's so much more useful that I'm able to use it a lot more than the older one. So this one's pretty cool. I do recommend it a lot. If you like or are interested in either of these Sony cameras, as an example, both of these have been on my other show, The Camera Cafe by Scott Alan Miller, or Scott Alan Miller's Camera Cafe, as we actually call it, and that is in the last 2 episodes I've done recently. One was comparing the 1 and the 1F to each other, and then the other was someone asked me to compare these cameras to the Olympus EPL9, which is a very different camera, and I thought it was an interesting episode. But I do talk about cameras and that stuff on that show. Obviously, that's why it's called The Camera Cafe. So if you want my thoughts and deep dive into any cameras or any topics like that, that is totally the place to go for it, not here. This is kind of a crossover episode, but since we're talking about how I film this channel, there's a whole bunch of cameras that I have that I don't use on this show that I talk pretty extensively about over there, so definitely check that out if you're interested. But these specifically, I just did some what I feel are pretty good episodes about them. I thought they're different and interesting, so definitely check that out. I know it's shocking how many cameras we use to make the show, but it's part of what makes the show so vibrant and why we're able to get so many cool shots like we do. There's different cameras for different situations, so I try to cover a lot of bases. I also have multiple shows, and different shows use different cameras, so that is part of it as well. I also, before doing this show, I used to film Take Flight with Scott, which I hope to do some episodes for in the future as well. All the episodes that are currently there, which are shot in 2019 from my trip that was primarily to Greece, was filmed on that FC300, and I think it turned out really, really well, and it really got me into a lot of the editing and stuff that I do now. That camera was given to Marcelita. She has had that. That's whenever she's doing her own stuff, that's what she uses. It's a great camera, but it doesn't meet my needs very well. So I was at a point where I was never using it, and I'm like, this is just sitting idle, and I try to get those cameras out and get used when that happens. So I did a ton of shooting on that, but probably the majority of 2019, and turned out some cool stuff, but it's just not going to meet my needs here. So I've moved on from that. Now, also that I got in the middle of last, well, I got it, I guess, in December, but it was purchased as a gift from Jillian from the community for all the help that I had done with her, for her to help move. So thank you so much to Jillian who helped out with this. This is the DJI Pocket 3. This is my first DJI camera. It's fantastic, of course. It's got a full gimbal and a 1-inch sensor. You flip the little screen around, the thing turns on and has a gimbal, so you're able to really walk around and get some smooth footage. And with a big sensor, it's able to handle low light incredibly well. Now, you've seen some of my videos recently that were filmed on this, and it does a really incredible job and has a unique look. Because of its small size and its gimbal and its low light performance, a lot of people consider this to be, and I'm gonna move this around, like you're watching me move around on one screen, and then you can see the stability on the other. Like, a lot of people consider this the absolute ultimate in vlogging tools in 2025. It came out in 2024. This is one I've been waiting for a really long time, like 3 to 4 years. I was waiting for this to come out, and I am super happy with it. I got to play with one while we were in Argentina just for a minute, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, I've got to have this. Because of the big sensor and the gimbal, it does low light in a way that nothing else I have does. And so for filming restaurants and things at night, which we hope to do a lot more of very soon, this camera is able to just take us there and look great. If I was to take the GoPro, which is fantastic in this bright sun, it looks terrible. I do have a wide angle adapter for this, and I have 2 remote microphones, so it's really good for doing like interviews or having multiple people on the show walking places. And we did use it recently for the empanadas episode, that's coming out pretty soon. I filmed it already, but it isn't out yet. This one will be out before that, I'm pretty sure. And I use it for a number of the walks in Las Piñatas recently. I haven't used it a ton, but I do use it from time to time. And one of the things that's different is the GoPro is fixed focus, so the background is always completely crisp. It's perfectly good. It's perfect for when I'm doing like barrio walks. I want to make sure you're able to see everything, and I have to be absolutely discreet what I'm pointing at. This is a lot softer as far as aiming and stuff, but it does have full focus. So it's actually focused on my face, and it'll track me as I move, even if my hand doesn't move. So I can put it on a tripod and do some interesting things. It just gives a completely different look than the GoPro does. And so it's better when I'm trying to get people on the screen, and the GoPro is better when I'm trying to get the background. Of course, I can do things to adjust what it focuses on. I can change the tracking and all kinds of things, but it is a different look, but a really good one for sure. So that is the DJI Pocket 3, and certainly one of my highly recommended tools. And if you want to turn it off, you just flip this and it puts itself away. And then there's like carrying cases and all kinds of things that you can get for it, and nice little things for wearing it and all kinds of stuff. So all these cameras carry a different purpose and are used for different things. And I mentioned this before, my 360 camera is primarily used for filming Nicaragua 360, a different channel. And my GoPros are used for drive warp, for example. And for the show The Camera Cafe, I often use the next camera, which is the first of my big beefy studio cameras, and that is the Olympus EM1 Mark II. Next up is the first of my monster cameras, and that is the Olympus EM1 Mark II. I absolutely love this camera. In 2021, when I was doing a lot of walking on the beach, we were living in Las Piñatas at the hotel. I was walking the dogs every day. I had a lot of time while just walking dogs to think about and do research on what cameras I really wanted. And this was one of the cameras I really came up with as being something that I felt I needed, and I definitely lucked out. This was the right camera through all the research, and perfect for what I do. It's absolutely fantastic. This is a beefy mirrorless, has all the features. It's waterproof. It's got amazing lens selections, really high quality, everything. This is actually my most professional camera of everything that I own. It's not the one that I use for, we're going to get to that, for a lot of the work that I do, but it is the overall highest end camera. Now, it's not meant to be handheld, but we're going to do this anyway because it will let us do that. And it's an absolutely crazy machine. Let me get this actually recording. There we go. Now it's kicked off. And I can, even with this huge lens, I actually can hold it and get a really good image. And some of you will kind of recognize the look that comes from this, that this is when I do some, normally this would be on a tripod, some of the really professional looks that I've gotten on some of our shows over the years have been with this camera. And so here, I'm going to back up a little bit so you guys can see what it looks like when I'm holding it. Like, this is pretty crazy. I can't see that screen at all. We'll assume that we're good to go. But this is absolutely beautiful, and all of Camera Cafe, or nearly all of it, is recorded with this camera. So if you watch that show, quite often you'll get a feel for what this would look like. So you could do a lot with this. This is very versatile, but this is a lot more work than a lot of other things. But for people who are wondering, like, where do I get that look from that's so impressive? Quite often, this camera and the others, like, you have to have the range to get the range of images that I get. All right, our last one is coming right up, and is one we use quite often for a lot of different things. And finally, we're down to the Fuji XS20. This is the camera that was actually recording the episode that prompted the question while you're videos look great. What are you filming with? That is this baby. And this is also the camera that does my live stream. So if you're watching my Thursday afternoon, evening, night shows, this is what you're probably watching on 99% of the time. Like once in a while, we'll flip over to another camera for a minute. This is the only camera I have that can really handle what we do for the live stream. This is also the camera I mentioned, Nicaragua 360 with one camera and Drive Warp with another. Nearly every show I have has a different camera that films it, except for this one, which has many cameras. This is the camera that films Nicaragua. This back screen does flip around, so you can use it for vlogging. Most cameras do this today, but certainly not all. Photographic focused ones do not. This one has a spot to put on a cooling fan, which I have, and that's what I use during the live stream and during Nicaragua. There's no way that this thing, at its incredibly high bit rate and quality, will be able to stay cool if I don't have active cooling going on. So that's one of the reasons that I have this and why it's so good for the video. Like the look of the Olympus might beat this, believe it or not, but for actual usability, this is by far the better camera. But we're going to get, this is the Suri 16mm sniper that we're on, which I use when I'm doing the filming in the office. When you see that beautiful light that looks like a studio and people are like, whoa, what are you doing? That is this camera with natural light. Now here the light is pretty harsh, but it's the same light that we're getting on the GoPro, so you can have a direct comparison. Now this is a relatively inexpensive lens, but a really fast one that I like a lot. I'm going to move a little bit so it's not getting glare on the lens, which is unfair to it, so you're getting a direct comparison. Here, I'll put it directly with the GoPro so you have a really good one to the other to see what it's like. I love the look of this camera. It does a great job. I love how easy it is to use, and it is definitely a key part of my arsenal and what we're going to be filming more when we get to doing additional episodes of This is Nicaragua. This is the camera that we got for doing that as well. So that is my rundown of the cameras that I have. I know that it's that I use for this show alone. I have additional Olympus. I am getting an additional Fuji. I hope I have a 3D camera. I have a number of Nikons that I use, but all those for different things that are not this show, and many of them are photographic and not video. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments what you think, what you want to see. Is there stuff like this is actually important? This is an extra episode. It's not meant to replace any of our main dailies, but I did think it would be fun to do. And we did a little bit of this on the live stream the other day, and people were like, this is really entertaining. So I thought it'd be cool to do that, and hopefully you liked it. So as always, if you'd like to help support the show and pay for it, like all these cameras cost a lot of money. It's almost a dozen cameras just to do this show, because as you can tell, it's intense. The amount of time that we record, all the editing for it, like there's a lot. So it takes a lot of cameras to be able to produce this kind of content, and hopefully a bunch of new content coming up in the future as we get out in the field more. I do have some really cool announcements about that are definitely coming in the next, say, week to 2 weeks, but things are in motion. I just got to let you guys know about what's happening, and I think you're going to really enjoy that as well. If you haven't checked out Nicaragua 360, please go subscribe to that. If you haven't checked out Aqua Elysium, that's AQUAELICIUM, Aqua Elysium, that is my channel for rain. Like, it's just rainstorms. You know, all kinds of different cameras recording rain in different places. It's really nice for relaxing and sleeping. Please go check that out. If you haven't watched Nicaragua, where we're recording concerts and interviews about music and artists and stuff here in Nicaragua, please go check that out. If you haven't watched Drive Warp, where we film high-speed drives around Nicaragua, around the United States, wherever we are, please go check that out. All those subscribes, all those likes, all those views, everything really helps support the show. And of course, as always, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Alan Miller, and I will see all of you tomorrow.